There is no one like Jeremy Thomas.
He's the dream producer. He's so rock and roll.
It's time to introduce our guest. He is an author and filmmaker with 36 credits as a director. Among his awards, the Stanley Kubrick Award, the Peabody Award, and a European Film Award. He is the director of The Storms of Jeremy Thomas. Mark Cousins, welcome to Arthouse Film Festival.
Thank you, Chuck. I'm very happy to be here.
Thanks so much for doing this. We really appreciate it. I want to start off, it's very challenging to develop and finance and shoot and finish and sell a documentary film. If your subject is a famous movie star, you've got name recognition, a fan base, a foot in the door. If you want to make a film about a director, that's a tougher sell. But choosing a producer, that's really going out on a limb. So why and what led you to Jeremy Thomas, and what got him to say yes and commit to such an extent?
I think that you're right. You're totally right, and the film industry values actors and directors, but sometimes the producers are the most creative people, and here we have an example of that. And so the producers of this film came to me actually and said, would you like to direct it? And I said, absolutely, because since I was a teenager, I saw this name on screen, Jeremy Thomas Presents. And when you saw those words, you knew you were in for a wild ride. You were in for something that was fully imagined, that was daring, that was often quite erotic or violent, the full spectrum of human life. And so this is what we could call an auteur producer, somebody who has had a shape and a feel across his whole movie career. And that's why I wanted to delve into his imagination.
Now look at the man in the car beside me. Who is he? He didn't just get the funding for some of the most daring films of the last 40 years. They, in part, came from his imagination.
Have you ever said to your director, no, that's too much?
My nature would be to go further and see what we can get away with.
You grew up in Belfast. Your father was a mechanic. Jeremy Thomas was a rich kid who had a chauffeur drive him to school. Different worlds, but you share a love of movies. I wonder if you can talk about how movies connect and bond people, often very different people.
Yeah, it's a common language, isn't it? It's a kind of lingua franca, whatever society you come from, whatever culture, whatever your sexuality or whatever your class or anything. We have this, I've noticed my camera's just gone out of focus talking about movies. There we go, it's gone out of focus again. We have this thing in common, which is this magic carpet ride, this medium, which is so magnificent that lots of us have fallen for it, and lots of us in the audience tonight have fallen for it, and that's what we have in common, despite all our differences.
You talk about a magic carpet ride. That goes along with cars a lot, and you know something about fast cars. But when did you decide that it was a good idea to interview a 70-year-old man who you've dubbed a petrol head, a deadhead, a restless punk, going 120 miles an hour?
Yeah, it seems reckless, wasn't it? But I knew that Jeremy had done this journey, this drive from England to the Cannes Film Festival every year. And it was a sort of famous journey that he did. And I thought, that's a good way to talk to somebody. In my films, I don't do sit-down interviews, like a talking head thing. But if he's on the road and we're on the road and we're feeling the kind of thrill of the ride, there's something about a road movie which is particularly good. We unravel, I think, when we're on the road. We lose ourselves when we're on the road. We, share ourselves a little bit, and that unraveling I wanted to capture. And Jeremy and I just had a great time really, opening up to each other, I think, and hopefully the film captures that a little bit.
Oh, absolutely. It certainly does. But I kept wondering, when you're going that fast, I mean, I like driving fast, but I know I can't take my eyes off the road for a second. I kept thinking, even with the Grateful Dead playing on the radio, I felt that maybe you should have been in charge of the radio, not him.
Well, Jeremy is a sort of, he's a Svengali figure, producers are great at conducting the orchestra, so he wanted to drive, he wanted to play the music. His taste in music is much better than mine. I was happy to be the supplicant, I was happy to be the dauphin. They sort of also ran and just discover his world, because Jeremy's world is a world of driving and roads and cars and hotels and movie stars and, crucially, music. The whole countercultural thing, he introduced me to, and I thought, I just wanted to observe that and not control it.
You and I are driving somewhere over 4 or 5 days. Where are we headed and why?
We're driving across a beautiful country. Because there's a necessity to arrive in Cannes for the first day of the festival. That's 4 or 5 days away, but during those 4 or 5 days, we can look at some incredible places. We can talk about movies, we can listen to great music. We can maybe find something special.
Now, for a road movie, typically you have an experienced production crew, a camera car, several camera operators, a sound recordist, support staff, production assistants. It can be 5 or 6 crew or 10 or 20 crew, skilled professionals working long hours to pull off the challenges of a very fast-moving production. Describe your crew and everything that was done to film this road movie.
The crew was us. It was Jeremy and me, and of course you're totally right, Chuck, that often that's the way to do it. And we could have had a follow car with a second camera, shooting our car. We could have had a drone shot. We could have had all that stuff. And of course that would have added extra production value. But what I think we were interested in is intimacy. When you drive somebody somewhere in a car, it can feel very intimate. And so I just wanted to stay in the car. So just Jeremy and me, no sound recordist, no DP, just us. And, it means that the film looks small in some way, but small on the inside, but hopefully, or small on the outside, but maybe rich on the inside. Hopefully there is an encounter with a human being and his imagination here that might have been less easy to get if we'd had a big crew.
I watched the whole movie and it didn't even occur to me until afterwards that you were the crew. And I started reading about it. I was like, wait a minute, there's nobody else. It's you did the sound, you did the cameras, you had a couple of you really did a phenomenal job. I mean, I'm always looking for that stuff, like how was it done? And you did it all. I mean, and you interviewed and you did the production. I don't know how you did all by yourself. I mean,
we did. Great. So I knew that at night when we got somewhere, I would not use the camera. I would just use an audio interview, and we might have a glass of wine or something, and we'd just talk quite gently to each other as you would as friends, as it were, So it's all about that intimacy, as you know. It's easy to do a big production, but to get slightly into the private conversation and the gentle world of a complex man is something that I wanted to do. And sometimes the cameras and the lights and everything can get in the way.
Absolutely. I want to get back to Jeremy a little bit. Successful movie producers earn their keep because they can get movies made. The better ones can get the best material, get their director what they need to make their movie, get stars like Tilda Swinton, who's in your movie, engaged and inspired to do their best work. But there are very few producers who can do all this and have vision and raise the cash and make controversial, risky, independent, non-studio movies and succeed and do it again and again and again. It's very rare. And your film is evidence of all this. So now, you've been about 5 or 6 years into this project. What's your perspective? What are your thoughts about what it takes to produce truly independent cinema at this level?
There's one word, integrity. And I think Jeremy really has that. He has the courage of his convictions. He believes in bold, imaginative cinema and then goes for it. And yes, he also believes in movie stars, and look at the movie stars he's worked with, everybody from Marlon Brando to, as you mentioned, Tilda Swinton, and Jack Nicholson, the
Dennis
brilliant Debra
Hopper,
Winger.
yeah.
But he's combined that with an absolute sense of the counterculture. You know, it's not that he doesn't like the mainstream culture, it's not that he doesn't like Spielberg films, but he has, you know, for a long time constantly had a rigid belief in the counterculture and how that contributes to our lives. And so he hasn't, you know, when you have this integrity, which he does, then you don't get lost. And it's easy to get lost in our business, and Jeremy hasn't.
You had great access to your subject. All the you go to you're with him all the time. You go to this beautiful hotel, the Carlton Hotel at the Cannes Film Festival, to his suite. The doors open. Your camera follows him in. You sweep into the room. The curtains fly back, and we see the gorgeous view of the water. And then, but later we see Jeremy sit down on the balcony with someone to talk business, but we don't hear the conversation. Was that business off limits?
I've not been asked that question before. Probably yes. I guess I wasn't interested in trying to capture a kind of fly on the wall sense of what Jeremy's current business plans or his future films were. I knew, you know, he would tell me when we weren't shooting, but that was never part of my plan. Part of my plan was almost to paint a portrait of somebody, you know, a remarkable person. And so when you're doing that, you're not, you know, you're not trying to capture a kind of journalistic moment, I think.
Yeah, I know that's tricky because sometimes filmmakers, I mean, I was a film student for many years, and they would come into the class and they would either just totally spill their guts and give every detail about budget and financing and everything, or you would ask them a basic question, they go, oh no, we can't talk about that. I mean, there's just two camps there, but I could see that, you know, you got to be careful of, you know, stepping on toes and such. I wonder, you probably had a lot of material that you couldn't fit into the movie. I assume, I mean, you have many challenges. You need tremendous discipline. You need ellipsis. You know, when you're cutting, you had hours and hours and hours of stuff. You have to compress a giant mass of material into 93 minutes. How do you winnow all this down and create a structure that it can all fit into and have a logic and make sense and tell the whole story and be entertaining and not be 100 hours long? How do you do that?
Yeah, I think the word there in your question, Chuck, is really important, is structure, you know, because any story needs a structure. And so this one needed one as well. And so I have in front of me my structure, this bit of paper. It says at the top cars, and then it says sex, and then it says politics, and then it says death, and then down at the bottom was art. And I knew each time I make a film, I scribble something like this. And often your first scribbled structure is your roadmap. You know, so in the edit suite, and I'm in my edit suite here, you know, we edited the film here with that piece of paper stuck on the wall. And once you've got your structure, once you know you're going to talk about the themes in this order, then that's how you whittle it down, you know. And you ask yourself the question, because he's interested in cars, then which of his films were about cars? Because he's interested in sexuality, which are the key moments about sex in his films, etc. And it really helps. Otherwise, you can spend a year in the edit, and we did not.
One more question. So you must have had some gold on the cutting room floor. What did you absolutely love that you had to sacrifice for the good of the finished film?
That's a good question. I don't know that there was very much. You know, this was a low-budget film, you know, because as you stated at the beginning, you know, this is not about a movie star or a famous director, you know, so you have to work in an economical way. And those of us who work in that way are super disciplined. So you think, what is the gold you're looking for? And then you try to find the gold. And in the movie, there's a scene where we're talking about searching for gold and finding the gold. So there wasn't much lost on the cutting room floor. You know, I think that, you know, Jeremy and I had a kind of rich time together, 5 days. And so we knew we needed, as Howard Hawks would say, 5 good scenes or something like that. So we didn't lose much. It was an economical, but I think also creatively vibrant way of working.
Well, you did a great job. Cohen Media will be releasing your film in theaters in America very soon. Congratulations and thanks so much for doing this.
What a pleasure. Yeah, thank you. It's fun working with somebody. I feel some of the magic from Jeremy has rubbed off on me. I hope so.